Okay, so you've made some political videos. You made some now you're like getting into you're doing more faith-based stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of awful people that comment mean things and stuff like that. It's
Mhm.
not very interesting, right? But was there any people did anybody say anything like a quip or a little comment or something that stuck out to you as like particularly funny?
Yes. A lot of people are calling me Vanilla Christ, and I thought, yeah, exactly.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Grown Up Christian. I'm Casey.
I'm Jeremiah.
And Sam is not here. He and his wife are splitting what's that burger with the egg on it at Red Robin?
I have no idea. The big rooster. It's not that. The grand robin, the royal robin. The
I
royal
think that
robin?
you might be close there.
I'm gonna
I
look it
think
up
he
real
and
quick.
his wife go to Red Robin. They order the Royal Robin sans everything but the egg. So they just order bun and egg, and then they cut it in half and eat it like a couple of old fogies.
It's the Royal Red Robin. That's what it's
Oh
called.
my God, you got it.
And this is great though, because Sam's gone, so you and I can drop the facade. We can quit acting like we're woke, and we can talk about all our conservative opinions. So
Yeah, you just joined the gun podcast. This is all guns all the time right here.
what new revolvers have you purchased recently?
I've got a bunch of them actually. I go through phases where I like kind of fixate on something and I end up with a whole bunch of it. And then like 3 months, I'll just stop thinking about it altogether and it'll be like it never happened.
I can see the artwork on your wall behind you.
Yeah. All my thrift store artwork.
It does work really well. It'd work better if it was over wood paneling, but
Oh man, I should get some of that.
it would really make the mystique work a lot better.
I think it would be traumatic for me though, because I'd be like back in my church basement, like at a junior church meeting. We'd be singing Onward Christian Soldier or something.
You guys had a gun and a buck skull on the wall in your church?
Yeah, just about. Oh my God. I do at some point I want to do like an episode where we get into like children's church songs that people remember
Absolutely.
that
Oh,
stick
yeah.
in their head. I was talking about this in the Discord the other day, but did you guys ever sing the Happy Christian Cowboy song?
No. No, we never did.
That was unique to us. Okay. So it would go. So we had this like really old lady that taught junior church on Wednesday nights, Mrs. Langston. And she was just like this sweet old lady, just I don't know, 1,000 years old. Like she was like when she wasn't in church, she was like in a sarcophagus or something. And she played the acoustic guitar, which is super
all right. I was
cool for an
expecting
old lady.
piano. Yeah, I was definitely thinking piano.
Yeah, she would like bring her guitar and she'd take it out and then she'd just start strumming away and we'd sing like the 4 songs that she knew every Wednesday. And one of them was, I'm a happy Christian cowboy going down that winding trail. I'm a happy Christian cowboy going home. Yeehaw! With my Bible in my saddle to help me win my battles. I'm a happy Christian cowboy going home. Yeehaw! And then there was like an extended like yippee-yi-yay, yippee-yi-yo sort of thing. But that was my favorite, and that's the only one that I remember other than Christian Soldiers, which I think everybody sang that.
I think they did. I'll do a shameless plug for Behind the Bastards. Go listen to the episodes about John Wayne. And so you can learn how everything that you think you know about about cowboys is all right-wing propaganda made up by Christian nationalists.
Oh my God. I'm reading this book right now. I don't read books. Okay. So whenever you hear me say I read books or I'm reading a book, that means I'm listening to an audio book about 50% of the time.
Okay, and does right now mean over the last 6-month period in little snippets? Or
No,
is it
this
like
is
an
maybe
active
like
thing?
a week, maybe like a
Okay.
week and a half, and I'm
Okay,
almost done with it.
that's still a pretty good timetable. That's pretty fast.
So it's called Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh yeah. Never read
Okay.
it, but I've read The Road and a few of his other things. He's awesome.
Yeah, The Road, and then what's the like the greatest movie ever made? What is that? Um,
The
with
greatest.
Anton Chigurh, and he's got the cattle
Oh,
down
No
in
Country for Old Men. Okay.
God, yes. Why did I not? Well, I couldn't think of it. Yeah. So, anyways, I'm in the middle of this like Western novel called Blood Meridian, and it's more like what I imagined the West was like. Just a band of sociopaths riding into a town, destroying it, and then scalping people.
Yeah, it's probably a lot closer. Although, like a lot of the cowboys, like the actual working hands, were actually like poor immigrants and stuff, and not as many like rugged bearded white guys, real men, out there on the range. Like it was actually like the working class has kind of always been the working class, and
I don't like that at all.
the hats weren't quite as white and quite as big. Supposed to just like some poor folks rounding up cows. I don't know, and a lot of rapists. So if you want to
Yeah.
learn about actual pedophile John Wayne,
Oh my God, really?
well, okay. I mean, was she a little bit underage? Sure. Was he cheating on his wife with this underage girl? Yes. Did the studio buy him an apartment that she could live in near his set so that he could be cheating on his wife with this underage girl while he was making movies? Yes. All those things actually happened.
Are we
But
talking
did
about
he
John Wayne or John F. Kennedy?
this time John Wayne, but I think which it also works for John F. Kennedy. But the good
I don't
news
think
is
she was underage. But
he dies from cancer that he gets playing Genghis Khan on a nuclear test site, and that's all a real story. So behind the bastards, John Wayne.
holy smokes. Well, I
He
was always
is.
more of a Clint Eastwood guy.
I'm sure he's the worst too, but he's still alive, so we might not find out quite as much. Like I think mostly Clint Eastwood's insufferable, and maybe that's just as he's gotten older, and you have to listen to him like have opinions about things. But he was really good at acting in those movies. I'll give him credit.
Yeah, I feel like he's produced some good movies too, and then he's also produced some just awful movies.
Well, anybody who's
But
in movies for like 70 straight years, like you got to assume it's fine.
dude, yeah, if you could go back 30 years in time and you said to a person who was a movie buff, you're like, Robert De Niro is gonna suck. He's gonna put out just turd after turd where he's like, the rascally grandpa next to like Zac Efron or something like that. Like nobody would believe you, but it's absolutely true. Like he hasn't made anything good in a long time.
No, that's you need to go back in time and tell people like this is why you need to budget and save for retirement because like actual movie star, one of the greatest actors of all time is obviously doing this for the money.
Yeah, it's definitely the Clint Eastwood low point was when he gave that speech to the empty chair at
empty
the
chair.
RNC.
Yeah, because before then, I think everyone thought of him as like the gravelly, old, cantankerous, but like man's man actor type guy. And then he did that, and you're like, oh, okay, so you're an idiot just like everybody else. Like, great, now we have to listen to your opinions.
Yeah, so if you're too young to remember this part, or maybe you just somehow missed it, which I don't know, you've done good so far. Don't even look it up. But back in like, I don't know, it would have been in the run up to like the 2012 election, maybe.
Yeah, I believe it was the Republican National Convention before the 2012 election.
Yeah, and Clint Eastwood was going to be a speaker at the RNC, and he gave a speech to an empty chair as if it was Obama, and it didn't work at all. It was like it was really uncomfortable. The audience was like clearly not sure what to make of it, and it lasted way too long. And it was just like, oh my God, this guy who, you've watched in all these movies and kind of idolized or whatever, like, oh, he's kind of turned into a fumbling idiot.
Are you describing the speech or like his last like 5 or 6 movies? Because everything you said, I think
All
applies
of
to both.
it.
Did you watch The Mule?
No.
85-year-old, however old he is, Clint Eastwood. Like it actually, the story is kind of interesting. It's like a critique of the American healthcare system and whatever. I believe it's the healthcare system, like because he starts like trafficking drugs and stuff because he needs money. as this old guy. But then like he directed this movie, so I'm assuming he's the one who decided he should get to have the threesome with like 2 young prostitutes in the movie.
No, really?
Yeah, yep. That's where you're like, oh, I don't, not to be a prude here, I don't know if the movie needed this, Clint. I don't know. Maybe things were better when
Just like a geriatric sex scenes. Like,
well, they
cut show
away.
him like taking off his Velcro shoes, like his
they
orthopedics.
They cut away at a tasteful time. I think probably because they didn't have enough budget to pay the actresses to actually be in the scene with him. But I feel like that's his last 5 or 6 movies where like there's genuinely he has some good ideas in there, and he's an old guy who's willing to be seen as an old cantankerous guy on film, and like I think he actually can make some really good stuff. But then there's enough of those things where you're like, oh man, come on. Didn't he also make American Sniper? That was also him, wasn't it?
I think he might have.
And that's all of that's a lie.
If you're listening to this because you're a fan of our guests, like, look, I'm sorry, just hang in there. We'll get to it.
Yeah. American Sniper was definitely
nobody that's joining this because they're a fan of our guests that are on this episode is going to be like, yeah, American Sniper, ridiculous, you know.
That's true. Well, I think it's ridiculous just from reading his book. Did you ever read Chris Kyle's book?
No.
In his own book that he presumably wrote himself, he talks about how much he likes killing people and how much he enjoyed war and how totally rad it was to go kill brown people. Like, I have a hard time, even as a fairly indoctrinated college student, I came away reading that book like, yikes. Like, this dude, I'm happy. Like, I appreciate on one level that we have people like him in our country to go do violence to people when we need it. On the other hand, from his own words, I don't get the impression that his violence really moved the needle a whole lot for America in any way that matters. Like, it really seems like he just liked killing people. And thankfully the US military was there to give him an outlet. Like,
oh my God. Yeah.
It's much like the lone survivor thing. Like, once it's all said and done, no one's gonna say anything bad because, you know, they're fallen heroes. And so none of the facts actually matter. Like, and the facts aren't that like they're amazing or they're horrible. It's the reality is a lot grayer for all these type things, but they've just been lionized to the point where like, that's it. Clint Eastwood's going to make a movie about you. Bradley Cooper's going to play you.
Yeah, we're in this weird space where like there really isn't like an anti-war like contingent in America anymore.
No, there's
like this weird
war and then like pro the troops anti-war. Which, what does it matter?
They switch places depending on who's advocating for like the current conflict that we're looking at.
The fact that all our wars can be done, but our military budget went up again. Interesting. We just have the pro-military and the more pro-military party. And to be like, I've got family members in the military. I'm not like trying to dog the military. But it's, oh man, I am kind of tired of like the lionization of anything from the war in Iraq in film as like a big old heroes going to do big old hero stuff, when like our biggest big old hero, like in his own book, is just like, yeah, as soon as I was back over there, like getting in combat, shooting people, kicking down doors, this is amazing. I love this more than anything. I love this more than my family. I love this more than my country. Well, I don't love anything more in my country except Jesus, but I really love killing those brown people. Anyway, like it's a disturbing book.
It's weird because like, so okay, your description initially was accurate about the other book that I've been reading / listening to, which is The Storm of Steel by Ernst Jünger.
Okay.
Who's like this German, he's very much like a man's man that was in World War I and was a war hero and stuff like that. And generally like the takeaway from World War I is that it's like this horrific, unnecessarily brutal and awful conflict, you know, with no redeeming values. Like that's usually the line that people take.
Pretty much everybody on every side agrees. Yeah.
Ernst Jünger is not like he's like this weird middle ground that I feel like people in society right now don't have a way to contextualize, because he like fully acknowledges how awful all this stuff was, but then he kind of like views it as this like culling process that like sharpens people into you know, like full-fledged human beings. Like he has like a deep respect for like martial values, you know, which we as Americans, I feel like we act like we don't respect those things until there's a conflict that we in particular like, and then we're like, yeah, you know, Ukraine, blah blah blah. But yeah, it's weird to hear that perspective out of somebody who was there and did it and saw the worst. Like, it's one thing to read about somebody who is like glorifying war and conflict and martial values and all that stuff, like prior to World War One, when it was all just theory and legend and like, you know, high-minded ideals and stuff like that. It's another thing to read those things coming from someone who like lived in mud and body parts and stuff like that for years, you know. And I don't know, it's just hard to really like put yourself in that person's shoes and understand like where they're coming from. But who knows, maybe we'll get our chance. I mean, you and I are kind of old and fat to get drafted
we're
at
too
this
old for
point.
the draft. We're definitely not going to get our chance.
We're just the right age to die in a nuclear holocaust, though.
Well, that's a good thing. Everybody's that age.
It's not as discriminatory as the draft.
Have you ever gone on to like the nuclear detonation maps where you can like pick the size of the bomb, and then do you drop it on major cities and just see like, am I good where I live? Now you live in Wichita, Kansas, so I imagine you're good for almost all of those scenarios.
Well,
like,
we have an Air Force base.
Yeah, but it's like real in the middle of the country. Like, it's not going to get hit first.
Are you saying our planes aren't real? Is that what you're saying?
No, the planes are real. I'm just saying you may not be on the top 10 targets. That's all I'm saying.
Kim Jong-un's got to throw that missile a long ways to hit Wichita.
Hey, they probably have already made a propaganda video where they've already hit you. So in the hearts and minds of the North Korean people, you're dead.
Dude, I would love to see their like depictions of how they would bomb the US, and it's just like big trapdoors on a bomber opening and Kim like holding a bomb out of the door and like dropping. No, I've never gone on those sites. I've heard about those, but I've never actually like gone on them and tried them.
It for you and me, it's really reassuring because I can look and be like, oh, you know, even with like the biggest bombs that have ever been detonated, I'm still far enough away, and I'm within easy driving distance of a couple major cities, and I'm still good. Now, it's not going to be good for everything around me. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be great, but like, I'm not going to get incinerated immediately in the blast. I'm going to die in the fighting shortly afterwards.
I get to die of cancer like most fat Midwesterners.
not if you go aggressive right after, like right out of the gate. Like, you know, do you play like Warzone or Battlegrounds or anything like that?
Fortnite? I guess, yeah. I don't really make it very far.
Oh, well, so maybe you can relate to this. You ever have a round where you're like, we're just going to land, like we only have 10 minutes left, we're going to go do something. We're just going to go aggressive right from the beginning. Like win big, lose big. You ever done one of those rounds?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what you got to do. When the bombs hit, you're just like, all right, you got to get the taste for human flesh out of the way immediately. And then like, yeah, you're probably not going to make it for 6 months. So do you want to drag that out while your cancer gets worse? Or do you want to go out like a hero, like lighting your truck on fire and driving naked through the town, like screaming out the window like a legend? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I am a fan of that strategy. It's never worked out for me in video games, but maybe real life will be easier, you know? Have you ever watched videos of that giant Russian nuke that they detonated in like the 50s?
Tsar Bomba.
Yeah. So cool and awful.
That's one of my fun trivia stories that I like to talk to people about how like, you're like this too, because you're like an old history nerd. You've got those like, no, society's always been horrible stories, or like,
yeah,
can you believe the crazy things that we used to do? I love telling people about Tsar Bomba. Just the idea that the Russians were like, all right, we're gonna make it this big, and then someone was like, wait, that might crack the Earth's crust. Also, it might set the atmosphere on fire. And if we do that, we're not sure how to put that out. Like if we burn all the atmosphere, we think we're all gonna die. And they were like, all right, half as big.
Do you want to flex your muscles or do you want to make new volcanoes?
Right. But I could just appreciate that someone was like, oh, well, okay, well, obviously that's insane. Let's scale it back to only 200 times bigger than the than any other bombs we've detonated. And let's see how that goes. And then I guess it went well enough. They did it once and they were like, yep, that was enough. And probably the person who advised against the 100 megaton or whatever one version was probably like, whoo. Because didn't the shockwave go around the world like 7 times or something?
I don't know. It was a big one. It was a lot. It was a big boom.
Yeah.
There was a. They were talking about. We were watching something the other day, and they were talking about there's an island off the coast of Russia that had people on it. They didn't even evacuate the people before the test, and just like it just like flattened them. And
well, it's Russia. Like that's their strategy for a lot of things. Like they probably saw that as like, well, obviously they're gonna die for the glory of this nuclear bomb test.
Yeah, it's like Russia's military strategy in every war is like when you it's like when you used to play Goldeneye and you're like, all right, no guns this round, only punches. And like nobody else obeys the rules.
No guns, no potato. Only punches.
We're just gonna mount up human bodies until we form a wall and the invaders can't get into Russia.
And it works because it's negative 35 degrees and everyone else is starving. And they're like, yeah. Like if you look at maps of how far the Germans made it into Russia, you're like, oh yeah, they had no chance. Like all of that death and they made it that far. And the Russians are like, yeah, we're just gonna keep having babies. Like by the time you get back, we're gonna be good to go.
Human capital is something that they're very comfortable with, especially back in the. It is weird too when you look at like all these different like conflicts that Russia's been in over the like past few centuries, and they always start out really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like they always just start out by just like getting like a huge percentage of the population in whatever the area is just ground into hamburger meat, and then at some point like the rest of the population realizes like, oh, the leadership is just gonna push us into this like mulcher until like the other side gives up, and so they start fighting back with like a heretical fury.
Yeah, do you think that's gonna happen in Ukraine? Or do you think like modern society with like social media that can show people on the Russian side what's actually happening and stuff, like do you think that is enough to turn the tide in something like this?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, at this point, it's like hard to even tell what's going on over there. Because I mean, we've been hearing since the very beginning that like Russia's just getting destroyed.
And they are, but the problem is they can get destroyed for a long time.
A long time.
A
like
real long time.
They've already set Ukraine back like 200 years in terms of like economic development.
But that's okay because the military industrial complex is just like hot diggity. Because if there's anything the US likes doing, it's making weapons. And if we can give them away for goodwill and we can spend military dollars at the same time, we can do this for 30 years. Like there's no bottom. We will not pay for anything to benefit our own soldiers. And we're not giving anyone health care, but we are going to help Ukraine.
But it's going to be
out of Russia.
It's going to be a golden Christmas again at Mr. Lockheed's house,
like it ever hasn't been. Oh, they were all out of Iraqi orphanages or whatever. He's like, what are we doing next? Thank goodness. Here comes a bunch of World War II tanks coming over from Russia.
Just half of them breaking down on the road there.
That's what we can use to train all of the drone pilots who maybe weren't quite sharp enough. You know, they didn't get the good missions. We're like, all right, good guys, you're gonna get some good practice in.
Yeah, I wonder what percentage of our drone pilots are just like in a Las Vegas basement stoned. Like,
I mean, we're using this to like train AI to fly drones, if we're being honest.
Probably. We're like letting Chat GPT like work out its aggression on some human capital.
Well, it keeps having to meet people from the internet, so I'm sure it hates us all already. So that's probably a healthy outlet. We're doing a service. We're trying to prevent Skynet. We're letting the computer kill some people. But it's okay because they're Russians. And as you just heard us making jokes about, history nerds love to make jokes about Russians dying by the millions.
Well, yeah, it
just
just happens so often.
Russia's czars. They enjoy it more than we do. Sam's really going to hate this if he listens to it.
Yeah, he is. Anywho, So let me introduce our guest this week, because this is a little different episode than we've done in the past. So we've had a lot of different kinds of guests on over the past couple of years, musicians and authors and activists, all sorts of different guests. But most of them, like, even though they differ a lot, kind of come from the same sort of like current viewpoint that we do, in that a lot of them have left the version of evangelicalism and stuff like that that they grew up in. And there's only like one other episode. Well, there was two other episodes where we had on people who are still like currently evangelicals in the way that like a lot of us would recognize from our youth and stuff like that. One of which we published was a pastor from a church in Virginia, I think, or Pennsylvania. The other of which was a mega church pastor, and we recorded it and we didn't publish it. It just wasn't good. It wasn't compelling. It was not something that anybody would care to. Very boring. Our guests today are still very much a part of that brand of evangelicalism. They're not only are they like still a part of the church and still like professing those types of, I keep using still. That's not a good word for. That's like
maybe if you can interview him a few more times, you'll get him. You can do it, Casey.
I'll just break him down the way that I broke Sam down. No, but they're definitely a part of the church that we grew up with. They're evangelicals, and they're kind of like creating their own ministry. So they call themselves Two for Christ, and their names are Nick and Haley Gaglione. So Nick is a fitness enthusiast. He runs a page called Lift with Christ, and Haley is a singer and performer. And her and her sister, prior to her and Nick getting married, they made patriotic songs. They made a lot of like songs about, like pro-life songs. They have a song called Back the Blue. They've done a couple of Trump songs. They're real passionate about that kind of stuff. And the two of them together are kind of combining their skill sets. So Nick is kind of like motivational speaker, and Haley, she does a lot of musical stuff, and they're sort of like taking their act on the road and performing for religious groups and things like that. They clearly come from a very different viewpoint than Sam and I occupy, and what a lot of our audience thinks, and so going into this thing, we found them because there was a video going around, and a bunch of you sent it to us, of them doing a Christian version of Eye of the Tiger, where Nick does some freestyle rapping and Haley sings, and they kind of like apologetic style change the lyrics to be Christian in nature, and it's fun. It's great. They don't take themselves super seriously, so like to them this is like a fun thing, and some people laughed. Some of the internet got real mean, typical internet stuff. But going into this interview, we thought, okay, we clearly have very different viewpoints on a lot of different things. What we don't want to do is turn this into some stupid debate where we like retreat to our separate trenches and fire shots at each other about abortion or whatever else. We did get into some of those topics, some of which we disagreed on for sure. But our goal was not to like turn this into some sort of hostile gotcha interview type of thing. We wanted to talk to these guys because we thought they were fun, and they were. They're very nice people, and some of what they say you're probably not gonna like, but they're good people, and they just come from a different viewpoint and mindset than a lot of us do. So without further ado, here is our conversation with Two for Christ, Nick and Haley Gaglione. And we're back with our guests, Nick and Haley Gaglione. How are you guys doing?
So
Fantastic.
very good. We're in our basement.
The opposite of an attic.
Nice. What does your banner say behind you?
I think a lot of Ohio houses have basements. I found out.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's such a northern thing. I guess it's a Kansas thing too, because otherwise, like
eventually you get swept away by a storm.
Yeah, I'm from Oklahoma, and we didn't have too much of a problem there. I mean, other cities did, but Tulsa was always pretty good. So, and my mom would always say, she'd say, "Tornado, untwist," and then we would literally see a tornado about to form, and it would be like back up like that. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. It was power of prayer.
Just like an airbender.
Yeah.
It's got power of the weather.
There it is.
So,
connection to the
first
avatar.
off, before we jump into things,
Mhm.
happy anniversary, right?
Oh,
Almost.
yes.
Almost. Thank you.
On Valentine's Day, that's next week.
Nice. 1 year?
On what?
Is it one year, right?
Yes, 1 year, and we're all. I don't know if you saw that we were pregnant. Did you see that announcement?
I think I caught that on the because you mentioned that on the
You
interview
gotta
with.
let him tell us. He did his homework.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
does
we got.
Oh
We
yeah.
found out the gender on Valentine's Day. It just happened to be that was the earliest they could do it.
It's actually less homework, and Casey's a little bit of a stalker, so you might actually still be hearing some of this after we're
Everybody
done
is
here
on
too.
Social media. It's just a matter of who gets caught.
If
know what
you
I'm saying?
have a social media, you're a stalker. So
Nah, as long as you don't hit
Pretty
the double
much.
tap, with your thumb, you're good, dude.
Yeah. As long as you don't find yourself parked outside people's windows at night, I think we're in the clear.
Who at this point hasn't crept around on someone they hate social media?
Oh,
Like everybody's done it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long
I mean,
as
this
no one shows
week-
up to my house, trying to gather info, you know what I mean? It's all good. That's what social media is for.
Deal.
I mean, you
rules
post things
of
for people to look
engagement.
at them, right?
speaking of that, he
True.
was watching that the Predator show. What's his name? Chris Hansen. Have you
Oh
seen-
yeah.
And there's all these guys that are like older and they're meeting 13-year-olds, and then they have an actress who is not. He's probably 18, not 13. But she's like, I'm really nervous and stuff. And then as soon as he wants to give her a hug, she leaves. And then Chris comes out and says, "Hi, I got a show, and you're in trouble," whatever. So it is
Yeah.
great to see some of these guys. And then they're like, "What's wrong with that? I'm just asking her questions," And it's like they're super inappropriate questions, and yeah, they don't know what to do. It's kind of crazy world out there.
Always such terrible lies too.
Oh, yeah.
Every time,
I was-
the lies are so
Coming
fun.
to hang
So,
out.
I was just delivering McDonald's. She wanted a Happy Meal, and I thought it was fine if I brought it over.
Yeah, I'm happy he's doing that.
I just figured it was better for her to buy alcohol from me than somebody else. who might be taking it.
Someone clearly crazy.
Right. Funny.
So, we stumbled across your video where you guys did the Christian rendition of "Eye of the Tiger." Is
Oh,
that
yeah.
like your smash hit so far? Like that seemed like it went pretty viral.
Well, it did, but because it is not our original song, it got taken down. I don't know if you saw that, but all the
Oh,
parody
no.
videos are like, the reaction videos are still up because that's like protected. But our video is not it's not funny. It's not, well, it is funny, but it's not like supposed to be funny. Like we're okay. So
Crazy. I actually thought parody was acceptable.
it is. But while people did laugh at it, the lyrics are not made in a funny way necessarily. It's not supposed to make you laugh, even though we did it for fun.
So that's the line
that's
for
so
parody,
dumb.
huh? It's not just like changing it for a different.
and
That's
you know
wild.
what?
I actually never really would have thought much about that. So that's interesting to learn.
We also kept a lot of the same lyrics, especially the title of the song. Instead of like "Eye of the Savior" or like some people are saying, "Why don't you do this or that?" We just kept "Eye of the Tiger" because I'm like, we'll just change as minimal words as possible because like people like the original song. He doesn't sing, so I was like, okay, let's maybe you could do a rap or something like that. And I think that's a huge thing with what Rock the Boat is. The original does not have rapping. So, and then he comes in, he's just like super excited. It's our first main event the first big event that we'd ever done. So that was August of last year, August 17th. So it was a really good time. But yeah.
Yeah, they get lame with anything involving music. It seems like
I guess.
music's
Yeah,
the thing
we
that
got
they
your own songs.
pound on.
We actually do have an original song / rap coming up pretty soon. We have it written. We just need to get it recorded. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, it actually has some of the
See,
same.
I'm trying to think of what a good candidate for that would be. Maybe not "Stairway to Heaven." What's the what's the one with the guy with the Satan shoes that everybody hated for? Or he was like in the news.
Little Nas.
Oh, Lil Nas
Lil
X.
Nas X.
Yeah, I definitely don't know any of
Yeah.
his music. But we're probably gonna start not doing parodies just because you know, some people may be okay with it, but Survivor is not. So, you know,
Survivor, like the song.
Survivor is
No,
the band that did Eye of the Tiger.
Oh, so that I don't know how that was lost on me.
What do you say?
I don't know how that was lost on me. I immediately went to Destiny's Child. Thought we were really gonna kick it old school with some Destiny's Child is what I was hoping we were going with.
Oh, funny. No, but he's always liked the Rocky movies. He's literally wearing the Rocky necklace right now, and you know that's the theme song of the series. So
Yeah.
I was like, hey, let's do Eye of the Tiger. That's a good song.
So your events. So like it sounds like you guys have kind of complementary skill sets where like Haley, you do a lot of singing, a lot of the music side of things. And then Nick, you're doing some speaking, some motivational, Christian oriented type stuff. Like what kind of things are you tackling in your presentations that you're doing?
Yeah, so for me, I am so Live with Christ, hence the name of my company. It was inspired by how I became a reborn Christian. So I used to be addicted to painkillers really bad. At the height of my addiction, I was doing over 200 milligrams of oxycodone a day. And I felt that the Lord healed me from my addiction. And I turned that addiction from drugs into fitness. And for me, that's how I really found Christ and started that relationship with him. So through my testimony, I want to help people, get off of drugs, because I know I could do it through Christ. And for me, I think your body's a temple of the Holy Spirit. And if you could, stay strict to your diet and you can go to the gym every day, you could accomplish a lot of things in life. So if you can inspire people to go to the gym or just find that outlet that isn't drugs or drinking or partying, my biggest thing for me is just trying to lead people to the Lord in a sort of unique and different way, So at the end of the day, like, I feel like my genre is like younger men, I feel like resonate more with me, but and just trying to guide as many people as possible to Christ just through sharing testimonies and whatnot.
Do you ever, when you're lifting, like, people listen to metal or, they'll watch like an action movie or something while they're on the treadmill and stuff. Do you ever think about just like beating the Sackler family to death?
The Sackler family?
Who is it?
They're the Oxycontin people.
Oh, nah, I just, for me, I'm a pretty positive person. So it's my own fault. I'm the one who went out and bought them. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, like, I can't blame other people for my own mistake. Like, I was prescribed the painkillers from my.
I personally like that route best.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be the person who I am today. So it's just everybody, if it's not the oxycodone, everybody, you can find different vices. Everybody has their weakness. You know what I mean? So, I mean, through it, when you're able to slay that beast, just like how David slayed Goliath, like you're able to tackle something that you thought that was so hard, you could like, wow, I can accomplish so much more. Whenever I'm having like a down day or not one of my best days, I reflect one of my days when I was on the detox center, just like trembling and just like having like tremors and like twitching. And it's like, today ain't that bad. If I went through that, like, this is a piece of cake. You know what I mean? So I just try to learn from every life experience, good and bad.
Honestly, that's pretty well. You're a pretty young guy, right? How old are you?
27.
27. So how long, when was this that you like were already that you went to the detox center and stuff?
Years ago.
Yeah. 17 through 19. Yeah. My first surgery was, I was a junior in high school, and my last surgery was my first year in college.
Okay, so you were prescribed these, and that's where the thing kicked off when you're talking surgery?
Yeah, because I was prescribed.
It's the Sacklers. Casey was right.
I was right.
Yeah, so it was getting prescribed them, and then because I built up a tolerance, I just naturally have a high metabolism, so my tolerance for them kept increasing. Right. And then I knew people that I could get them from that. I had one person approach me one time in high school, and I was just like, oh, no way. And then once I was like, my tolerance was getting up, I was like, I might reach out to that dude. You know what I mean? So it just escalated. And at the height of my addiction, I was doing over 200 milligrams of oxycodone a day. And I thought it was justified because I'm like, well, if a doctor's giving this to me, it should be fine for me to take, and I'm a 17, 18-year-old kid going through this. So I don't know any better. And I was just so accustomed to taking them that it was almost like breathing in a sense. I needed to have oxycodone that day in order for me to function like a normal person.
You needed oxycodone and oxygen.
Wow. Yeah, oxycodone.
So I keep hearing the 200. keeping in the 200 milligrams a night. So I just did a quick Google search because I don't know that a lot of people know. I didn't, so I had to look it up. And I assume I'm smarter than most people, so other people probably don't know it. And 9 milligrams every 12 hours with food is like the general doctor prescribed dose. And then it says usually not more than 9 milligrams every 12 hours. So 200's a lot. It sounds.
They
Yeah,
got
I
real
violated
loosey-goosey
that.
with those recommendations, though. I
Mhm.
think at some point they started making like Oxycontin pacifiers and stuff. They got real wild with it.
Yeah.
Did you did you know other people, like, was when you were in the middle of that, like, did you know other people that were going through the same thing, or was that something that was kind of like was that a secret that you were sort of bearing on your own?
Yeah, it was definitely a secret. Like, it was just, and the thing is, I naturally have a pretty bubbly personality. So when I was in high school, I could play it off so well. And if I did something goofy, that's just like, oh, that's just gags being gags. You know what I mean? Because I was just, especially in high school, like, I didn't care. I cared more about making my friends laugh than getting good grades when I was in high school. So I was just, it's something that I kept to myself. And most people in high school were either drinking or doing marijuana, and my vice was painkillers. So I really didn't know anybody else that, had the same addiction or problem that I did. So it's just sort of me and my own little island. I just tried to figure things out for myself.
Were you in a Christian environment at that time?
No. So I went to a private school up through 7th grade, and then 8th grade I switched
I
up.
knew it had to be private school when you said there was a kid who was selling pills. It's always private school kids who have. They got it.
The private school is where you.
Well,
get
no,
to
no.
like
But
all
what
the
he's actually
crime.
saying is that when he went through his addiction, it was actually in high school. So it's as you would expect from a public school. Now, I've never been to public school, but he went to Christian through 7th grade, and then 8th grade he went on.
Yeah, 8th grade was when I started going to public school.
Yeah.
So it was 8th grade through 12th
But
grade.
So the dirty, rotten heathens. Okay.
No, but growing up in a Christian school, never went to anywhere besides Christian and homeschool. There were kids in my school that did a lot of drugs too, and doing all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah, I don't think drugs discriminate in general. I think
Right.
drugs that levels the playing field when it comes to people thinking they're
Mhm.
all doing all right. I shout out homeschoolers. I'm a fellow homeschooler.
He had to buy pills from his mom.
Yeah, I did. The only pills I got were the ones I took from my parents' medicine cabinet.
Well, I was going to say, ironically,
I didn't do that.
when I've spoken at like AA meetings or when I've spoken to like past addicts, most of them are actually Christians. They found Christ through their addiction, So like, at least for me, through like the circles of people that I was with, most of them, that are on the other side actually are Christians that compared to like atheists or different other religions, So at least that's what I've seen through my own walks of life and people I've interacted with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's kind of a central
common
tenet of like AA and things like that, right? Like that was like a higher belief in a higher power and something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did you guys both grow up Christian? I'm just guessing because growing up Christian is the name.
Yeah, sure did.
Yep. I was a Christian school kid. So what kind of Christian school did you go to?
I don't know. It was a non-denomination, but we are charismatic. We were raised that way in our church anyway.
Okay.
So we believe in speaking in tongues and healing and all that kind of stuff.
And I went to a Catholic school through 7th grade.
So not Christian. Gotcha.
Do you remember what kind of curriculum you guys used at your school?
Curriculum?
There's like a few different brands of like Christian school curriculum. Like mine was Accelerated Christian Education, was like the books and stuff that we used. I don't know if there was like a franchise one that you guys used.
I don't know about from school, but in homeschool, I think it was like maybe a Becca or I'm forgetting now the names.
That's the big one.
Like the heavy hitter.
So, which ones has the yellow English books and the green science, the blue English?
That's ACE.
ACE
had the little. Yeah, that was what I went to. It has the little comic strips with the little Christian kids in them.
Maybe that's what it was. I don't recognize that name, but maybe that's probably it. We kind of switched between.
It was forgettable.
I had a computer one and I had written ones. I like the computer one better. Written ones are just, I don't know. And there's 8 of us, so it was very hard for my mom to like take care of, grade each kid's stuff. So sometimes I had to grade our own stuff. But anyway.
All A's. You were a straight A student then, weren't you?
No, I was not a straight A student. Only in English and math. I barely graduated because I was not doing well in math. But I think I What you need a D to pass? I think, is that right? You need a D.
At least you can get at least one, I think.
Okay.
I think my transcripts were mostly entirely made up, so I'm
funny.
not
Yeah,
exactly
well-
the right person to ask here.
We're the opposites in that he's a super math guy and I'm a super English. So you might even catch me in this interview saying, Nick, don't say have overcame, say have overcome, or whatever, this and that. But
I prefer come.
yeah. Okay.
So Haley, you grew up like very conservative Christian, like your whole age. I think I heard you say you got saved at a pretty young age, right?
4 years old.
Nice. Okay. So would you say that you were like pretty devout, like your whole life? Did you have a point at which you like, I don't want to say like were less so, or like everybody kind of has like these weird turning points in their life and in their faith where they're like, went to summer camp and you're like, I'm recommitting my life to Christ.
Oh,
Did you have that? Was it an
No.
ebb and flow sort of thing?
I did not have that. And I also didn't have like a backsliding stage either. I didn't give my parents a lot of trouble, but
Something to look forward
his moment
to.
was when he got off drugs. It's hard to say since I did get saved at such a young age. I didn't always think that I would go to church until I was like, 18 or something like that. I told my dad, was like, would you go to church if I wasn't telling you, to go? Because like under my roof, everyone goes to church. And I was like, I don't know, and he's like, okay, you need to figure that out, whatever. And I thought about it and I was like, I would, I still would, because it's a good thing. It's always made sense. And Bible says, do not forsake the gathering together of the saints. So I was like, yeah, I think I will. So yeah, we do.
Well, I got saved at 6, so you have 2 years on me.
You were a heathen for 2 years longer than I was.
And probably a lot more than 2 years, depending on when you track my exodus from my inherited faith. But so maybe we're looking at like 20 years at this. It's hard to put my finger on it now.
Sam still calls himself a Christian, but nobody considers him one.
But Christians don't, so I've just kind of stopped even trying. I was like, fuck it. I guess we're over that. It's not working. No, it's like generally you get pushback. So it's like, or I have to explain myself for too long, and it just becomes easier to be like, whatever you will think I am is what I am to you. So we'll just we'll resign to that.
We were all raised Christian, but 2 of my brothers say they're atheists. I don't know if they really are or just it's convenient to be, or, I'm not sure. But I know that the Bible says that if you train a child in the way they should go, when they're old, they won't depart from it. So
your parents failed.
They did the best they could, just like anybody else. But everyone.
That's okay. Mine did too. I think most do. I always find that funny because there's like this. There's also it says like the few passages where it talks about like prerequisites for being like in leadership, like a pastor or something. Maybe it's relegated to deacons as well, but it's like that same applies. Like, well, if you can't keep your own kids in the fold, then how are you going to be responsible for an entire flock? And that one seems super clear in the Bible. And I see so many pastors with kids who go, fuck this, and then take off, and then they still get to be pastors. I've always found that one super interesting.
What do you mean they still go on to be pastors later?
No, like the pastors aren't fired for their kids. Because I knew someone who went to a church whose pastor was fired because their kid defected from the faith. And I was like, that's actually a really solid level of biblical literalism. I don't respect the outcome, but I, appreciate your commitment to the cause.
Wow. Well, I think a lot of times in ministry that it's hard to have time for your kids, or it can be difficult to make time, because everybody else is calling for you. Everyone else needs you and is calling in the middle of the night. My dad was a pastor for 7 years, and he'd get late night calls. He would be ministering to people. So, when you have people that are really pulling at you for help, then it's easy to help them first before your own kids. And your kids are not always asking you for help either.
No.
Yeah, it's not super. It's not very fair to I don't know. People they come of age and they have periods where they come and go, and everybody goes a little different direction to end up at the point at which they feel like they are in control of what they believe, and they've made those choices for themselves. And
Yeah.
no, I don't. It's really not fair to like blame parents for that sort of thing.
I really don't think so. I hope that came across as a joke.
Oh no, totally. The whole thing about Christianity, I think, is God gave us a choice. I mean, he could have made us robots and said, you have to worship me, you have to be a Christian. But the fact that we don't have to be makes it more beautiful when we choose to be. That's my opinion. You know what I mean? Because or else he wouldn't have put the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the garden, right? Because that was tempting. The snake was in the garden. So because of that, they had a choice to disobey God, and unfortunate for all of us.
You're not a Calvinist.
I am not a Calvinist. But what
Nick,
that?
You're not a Calvinist, are you? Because that wouldn't bode well for your guys' review.
Oh man, I am very familiar with Calvinists, and with all I respect the fact that they defend the faith, but I just long
From
story
other Christians.
no, I mean. Yeah, I would say for the people I've interacted with on social media after the Eye of the Tiger, I'd say most of the comments that I got were from them, like just on their opinions of it.
Interesting. Well, I think a lot of atheists saw it too. We had a lot of atheist comments, and some people said, "Now I'm an atheist because of this video." Well, that was easy. Anyway.
Well, it's not on you guys.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. We hadn't ever seen so many atheists rolling at one place before. Because my sister and I have a couple viral videos, and I don't know. Both of them were political videos, and so maybe they're just people that didn't support our stance, but not necessarily atheists. But you just never know. You just never know. So,
well, politics is the true religion, so it's
well
sure that brought people out more than you could. That's why that shit goes viral. That's why people come out in droves to respond to. It doesn't matter what side it's on. It's like I think nothing makes people want to troll other people on the internet more than differences of political opinion, even more than Calvinists.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we will never all agree. But it's become more of a spiritual matter as the sides have gone so different ways, Like, I believe that the Bible stands more as the Republican conservative side. We're pro-life and believe in gun rights and, just regular human rights and, all that kind of stuff. So,
gun rights.
Gun rights.
I support those gun rights.
The right to bear arms and arm bears. So
it's like one of the only episodes I've ever done where I don't have a gun hanging over my head.
Oh, really?
Part of my set piece, but I'm here at the stupid Hampton Inn this week.
And they just wouldn't let him bring a gun in. He's just like, this is ridiculous. So instead it's sitting in his car, fully loaded, just in case.
I don't want to be coming in here looking like Stephen Paddock or anything.
Does it at least have continental breakfast?
Yeah,
I'm and sure continental soldiers.
Eggs.
We don't go to a hotel that doesn't have continental breakfast, so we're always on the search for.
Well, I was gonna say, if you brought that gun with you probably wouldn't struggle getting first in line. You see a guy with a gun, like, all right, he can have the eggs,
Yeah, you like put the soggy Danish down.
Yeah.
Why are their baked goods always wet? I don't understand.
Right. We're going to the WrestleMania in LA in April, and we found a really we're not paying for the hotel as Dad is, but they have like the best continental breakfast. We're really in for a treat, so I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
I don't think it's worth going to a hotel without a continental breakfast, and every time we have, it's always been a big regret. I regret not having it more than I always regret eating continental breakfast.
Yeah, and you know what I have found too at the really nice hotels? They have the good view, but the beds are harder. They don't have a microwave or a fridge oftentimes, and they don't have the continental breakfast. So it's just like, I'm much more comfortable in the cheaper hotels in general.
Yeah. No fridge in a hotel room is one of the most bullshit things anyone could do.
It's not acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah. You really you want to be comfortable. You need to stay at a hotel like a Hampton Inn where a fat, depressed businessman like myself is going to, lay in bed and watch Seinfeld reruns until they fall asleep.
I literally watched a Seinfeld rerun for the first time. It was on Netflix. It was the first episode maybe that he ever did. And I got an appreciation for him because I really didn't know. I just knew his theme song, but I didn't have an appreciation for him because I had just seen him on like Miranda Sings and just like other things he's older and they're making fun of him or something like that. But it was nice to see him shine. He's just a young man, just being funny and quite a guy.
Classic.
Tis.
So Okay, so you've made some political videos. You made some now you're like you're doing more faith-based stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of awful people that comment mean things and stuff like that. It's not very interesting, right? But was there any people, did anybody say anything like a quip or a little comment or something that stuck out to you as like particularly funny?
Yes. So a lot of people were calling me Vanilla Christ. And I thought, yeah, exactly. I thought it was hilarious. So if you guys go on my merch store, I actually have Vanilla Christ merchandise because of it, because it was just gold. And
literally in our next video, he's going to be donning the hat and the shirt.
yeah, and I don't want to spoil too much, because I definitely I try to look at what happened objectively. I don't take any comments good, bad. I don't take much of it personally. I tried to learn from it, see what if people are critical, why they're critical, are they being trolls? Do they actually want to help me? Vice versa.
It may be
no one on the internet wants to actually try to help you. That is not what the internet is for.
Only people that you know, and the people that you know get offended for you, and they're like, I know this girl, I know her sister, she's so nice. Please take this down if you have any respect. And to me, I'm like, no, just let him. It's just giving us airtime. You know what I mean? It's like, it's fine. I know it looks a little goofy, but we're not going to take ourselves too seriously. I wish it didn't get pulled down. I hope people don't think it's because we were embarrassed, because we wished it could have
Don't
gone.
have shame.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean,
not ashamed.
He knows that he doesn't always clap on beat. He knows that he's not a musician or this and that, but we wanted to collab on something, and I thought it was a really great memory. I wish we could do it again, but I feel like they'll send us a cease and desist where we can't even perform it ever live. We'll see. But yeah, that's why we're working on getting our own stuff out so that we can have.
I feel like the rule is you can do whatever you want live to some degree. At least I've seen so many bands just randomly do covers and no one seems to care. So there's got to be some sort of cover law when it's like, if you're doing it live. I mean, you're doing it like, where are you doing these? Churches? It's like,
yeah,
where are you doing your events?
I would think if you're not selling it, it should be okay, but maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah, I was talking with some people about it, and it's just sort of hit and miss. It depends on what group you're doing. Like, some people are super chill about it. Some people, they throw cease and desist at you, so
don't do anything Disney.
You'll
be fucked.
Because
I've tried anything Disney. I literally did a whole album of parodies of Disney.
And it's still up?
It was all about Branson. Yeah, well, they're not funny, and it still is up. I just basically wanted a Branson boom, right? Because Branson's kind of dying, or it was. I don't know if it still is or not, especially around COVID time. And you can't blame me. It was during COVID when I recorded this album. So it was called Branson Boom, and it was like a bunch of Disney songs. I Just Can't Wait to Be King. I took that song, and it was about the road trip to Branson and how, how road trips are fun. Anyway, and then I talked about the Dolly Parton Stampede, like anything that's really big, I mentioned it in the song. And so my biggest one was The Bare Necessities randomly from Jungle Book.
Yep.
That's a classic.
And then I did a whole other album about Branson from The Sound of Music, every track from The Sound of Music. And I reworded it to be about Branson.
You like Branson?
I do
disturbing
like
amount.
Branson. and I worked there for a couple of years. My first theater job I was Mother Mary in the Nativity show at Silver Dollar City. Have you heard of Silver Dollar City?
Oh yeah, I've been there.
Okay, so yeah, it's like basically what's Branson's sort of built around the Marble Cave and Marble. It was Marble Cave. They found out they didn't have marbles, and then they called it Marble Cave. Anyway, so I worked there, and then the next following year,
what's the difference? I don't think I'm hearing it. Marble
versus
marble with a B, like rock. But they bought the cave. They realized it wasn't marble; it was limestone. So then they named it Marvel Cave.
Oh. I hope they didn't pay for marble.
Yeah, but so I did that, and then I was in a longer show than the following year, 2020. I only did 3 shows, and then shut down for COVID. Then after a few months, we came back, and it was not the same. So at least we had 3 shows that were basically sold out. It wasn't a very big hall, but it was a great experience. It's about 2 hours show. I did a whole monologue and songs and stuff. So it was a really good, secondary, like a second job for theater. Then all last year I worked at the Amish Country Theater, which is here in Ohio. They wanted me to work there a couple of years ago, but because my sister and I had to make all decisions together, she didn't want to move to Ohio. And I was like, I'm not moving by myself. And so we got married Valentine's Day this last year. Then it made sense to work there because we were only an hour away. So That's Millersburg. I don't know if you know where that is, Berlin, Millersburg area. So we're in Akron. But yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I know Akron.
So
What that had to be, was that like did you feel like that show in Branson, was that kind of like your, man, I'm getting a foothold and I'm getting moving, and then all of a sudden like the rug's pulled out from under you on that thing?
I wouldn't want to do it again. I guess it would have been cool to do the whole season, but I did enough. And then, you know what an understudy is? Someone that does it for you when you have to be out. There's 2 understudies. And I always made sure that when I needed to be out to do whatever I was doing with my sister, music video, whatever, that they were in. Well, I started leaving too many times, and they were like, "You can't do this. We need the cast to gel." So I was like, "Okay, well, I guess I need to put my 2 weeks notice in." Then they're like, "As far as we're concerned, you're out tonight." So I was like, "Okay, well, I guess that's okay." So I moved back to Oklahoma, and my sister and I filmed a song called "Back the Blue," which was in support of law enforcement when they were talking about defunding him or whatever. We were like, "Oh, this is ridiculous." So we made a song and put that out, and that one didn't go as big as our Trump song, but it was also kind of past the point of where there was a big craze of the defunding thing. So, but
nothing was smoldering anymore.
We went for 10 years, and we never had a big break. And maybe, I don't know if we were just kind of too clean. You know, we're very squeaky clean with our values and everything like that, and we're non-compromising. So oftentimes if you don't compromise, you don't go that far, unless you want to go completely into the Christian world, which we just never did. Probably should have, but we have love songs and other stuff. And I was like, well, I don't know if we want to pull an Amy Grant here, because not everyone views that in a good light. And then you go back and do love songs, and it's like, are you Christian or country? And it's like, we're kind of all of it. But anyway, but now I'm just in a different phase after being married, and we're doing our 2 for Christ events. And speaking of 2 for Christ events, the Eye of the Tiger video was not actually a church service. I don't know if you knew that, but people thought that, we were doing a worship song. And this was actually just an event they put on because it had a cross in the background. It looks like a church, but it's actually a Christian event center. And so we just having some fun. I did 45 minutes of music. He did his preaching, and then we just kind of did a fun thing. And they invited us back too. We came back for a Karen Carpenter tribute where he's my Mr. Postman. So that's also fun.
Karen Carpenter tribute. I don't know who Karen Carpenter is.
You know the Carpenters.
I do.
Yeah, so that's one thing I do. I've probably done like 20 shows of Carpenter since the year 2020, before they announced COVID. It's actually the day after Valentine's Day when I did my first one, 2020. So it has been 3 years. It's a long time.
Is Karen related to June?
Mr. Postman 10 times. What'd you say?
Oh man, I'm not. No, I'm way off. Sorry, I was.
Is Karen what?
June Carter was the lady that sang with Johnny Cash a bunch and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Karen Carpenter. She was born in I don't know. She died in 1983. She was only 32 years old, and it was from anorexia. And it wasn't anorexia wasn't very big deal at the time. She raised awareness to that the fact that it's actually a problem. So she became kind of poster child.
Still doesn't seem like it gets a lot of attention, but
oh yeah, I guess not. But it's a very sad thing. What a horrible thing.
Yeah.
And all because the fans were saying she looked chubby in her pictures.
God damn, that's wild.
That hasn't changed.
No, that's still the same.
Yeah.
My wife's like a social media personality, and it's amazing how mean people are.
Yeah.
Like dumb junior high kids just being mean.
Yeah, it just in general in this world, you got to have thick skin, no matter what you're doing, because especially with what people say, like if you don't know them personally, you can't take what people say personally, and it's just, I memean, even if you're a CEO of a company, you're president of a big company, you always got people underneath you that are saying, oh, you should be doing this or should be doing that, and it's just a life skill that you have to develop in order to be successful,
Honestly,
but they get them back pretty good by underpaying everybody, so it's even.
I think everyone.
You guys are funny. How about some mass layoffs?
Hated at some point. The Bible says that if you are a Christian, you will be hated and mocked and scorned, and just basically look forward to that. Not look forward to, but just kind of like know it's coming. And it's the same if you stand up for almost anything.
I haven't scorned.
I feel like some people lean
any
into
of
that
them
a little hard. I'm curious. Okay, so
yes.
Well, first off, so you mentioned that you you and your sister, you'd done some Christian music, but you didn't really want to like lean fully into that, like brand yourself as a Christian act and stuff. Like, did you grow up on Christian music or?
Yeah, Christian music exclusively in Oklahoma. It was called KXOJ. And it was just, I can only imagine all the time, and some other songs.
Nothing's changed. I think that one's still on.
And so we just grew up on that. We didn't listen to any secular music until we were adults, and we started singing at a golf course. We were actually at a flea market, and I was just singing while I was walking, and there was this old, like maybe 72-year-old man said, "Oh, you got a nice voice. I got a golf course I want you to come sing at for money." And I showed him my sister. We sang together. He's like, "All right, both of you, we're going to pay you $200. Sing for 4 hours." No, it's $400 for 4 hours. And we did that a couple times. It became too long. So he said, "Okay,
that's
we're
a long time."
He said, "Now 2 hours for $200." But he said, "But when you go to other places, you charge them $400 for $200. But I'm paying you twice a week, so you give me a deal." So we're like, okay. So he started us off on it. He gave us some money to record some of our music, and I don't know if it's online, but we have 6 albums now, and 2 of them are on Spotify. One's called Snowing Again, one's called Rocky Road. So yeah, 3 country, 1 Christian, 1 patriotic, and 1, what did I say, Christmas. And that's one of our best ones, honestly, Snowing Again. We have a lot of music. We have a lot of videos of Christmas on our YouTube. You'd think we are just completely Christmas singers, but
I have a question, because so you said you're going to a WWE event, right?
Yes.
So growing up Christian.
No, I'm
just dragging him along to see Roman Reigns.
But like, so the Christian thing and the only Christian music. Haley, were you into wrestling at all, or is that something that Nick got you into, or is dragging you along to?
I had never heard of WWE, and
okay, I had to.
All scripted. I was like, and how does anyone take this seriously? Like, it's nothing's real about it. But just kind of like you watch a movie and it's all scripted. I guess that's how they view it. I don't know.
The only reason I was sorry, go ahead.
Of Anarchy.
I was gonna say her trade-off is like, I'll watch her Disney movies if she watched wrestling. So like, we just watched the Royal Rumble recently, and she's like, "I wanted to watch Lion King." I'm like, "You did watch the Rumble? Yeah, I'll watch Lion King with you." So that's sort of our trade.
Right. He watched the reason. So I'm proud of him.
The reason I was asking is because growing up, my parents were like absolutely unequivocally against wrestling of any, like we were not allowed to watch it. It was like, this shit's bad. It's ridiculous. It's glorifying violence. It's everything about it. It's over sexualized. If there's women wrestlers, it's like they hated it. And so that's what I think is that's why I had to find out, like growing up only doing Christian stuff. But Nick, you said you didn't really like have the same strict Christian upbringing. So did you ever get that as a kid, or were you always just allowed to watch wrestling, or did you find that later?
Yeah, so it wasn't until my parents divorced, because my dad was super into wrestling.
He wanted to be the cool dad. I got you.
Yeah, exactly. And my dad would always watch the pay-per-view events with his brothers, and then my mom wouldn't let me go because I have triple brothers the 3 of them are all 20 months younger than me. So the last thing she wanted was me and my brothers getting influenced by a bunch of guys fighting, because my brothers and I were very energetic growing up,
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't
know. Yeah. A lot of kids got body slammed through plastic tables because of wrestling.
I was going to say a chain of broken coffee tables.
Yeah, my cousin got choke slammed off of his bed and broke his arm at like age 6.
Yep.
Both tried this at home, But so it wasn't until my parents got divorced was when my dad's like, "Hey, like you're with me right now." And WrestleMania 26 was the first event that I watched at his place, and I was just like, "What? This is the coolest thing," So immediately from then, I was just hooked, like every single week. And then it got like I got really, really into it, like more so. I think of it as like the greatest form of entertainment on TV or anything. Like,
yeah, I love that. People saw the influence of that on the Eye of the Tiger, because they're like, he's shadowboxing. What is this, John Cena? And he definitely has a lot of his personality, let alone dance moves or whatever from the wrestling show. But I'm not against wrestling for kids to. I think it's actually good because you're shaking each other's hand, you're looking in the eye. It's like a respect thing. As long as you keep your ears protected from the cauliflower. I think that it's a good thing. Now, boxing is different. While we like the Rocky movies, I would never want my kid to get into boxing.
Boxing's brutal.
Yeah, that's a lot
You're
worse.
not pretending to beat each other up. You are taking it to the face.
Yeah, I don't even know how that's legal. But
I feel like I would be really. I don't have kids, but I feel like if I did,
you would
there's,
sign
like,
them up for
certain
boxing
things.
it from like age 3.
It
Is that where
depended
you're
on how
going with this?
annoying they were.
Right. Yeah. 20
No, but,
minutes in the
like,
ring is their punishment. Is that how you were going to handle things?
You were gonna play softball. Now you're gonna go get punched in the face.
oh man, basketball would be a good sport. I think he was a basketball coach recently, and he also got an offer for AAU game up in Cleveland. So we'll see if he does that or not. But
AAU. My only
that'd be
experience,
cool.
my experience with AAU is my foster son did it, and I had never been involved in anything like that, and he wanted to play on the team really bad. So we're like, all right, we'll sign you up. And then after I signed him up, I realized how much of my life that was going to consume. And boy, did I not love AAU for that reason. It's like every Friday and Saturday night I was out. It's like, oh my God, this doesn't end forever. And you drive really far. And
oh man,
he loved it. So that was fun. But I was like, oh my God, I did not realize it was good that I didn't realize what I was committing to when I signed up for it, because he would have missed out on a good opportunity.
Resigned him to a bad childhood.
Yeah.
It's big. I was telling her I actually enjoyed playing AAU more than I did for my school teams growing up. You know,
I've heard that a bunch.
As a kid, like being in 6th grade, just like, oh, you're playing 4 basketball games today. You know what I mean? Like, you ain't gonna complain about that. You know, and it's just, I don't know. I always enjoyed just the travel aspect of it and everything. Like, I got a better experience doing that than for my school growing up.
Yeah, it's a cool thing, man. And it connects you with a lot of different schools. If you feel like you're taking it seriously, and for kids who want to take it to a collegiate level, especially if you're on a team, like some teams have great kids, but aren't great teams. And it's like a good opportunity to like actually interact with some college coaches and kind of scope out some colleges in the area when maybe they're not showing up to your school's games all the time.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I always view sports, like I feel like people's true character comes out in sports. You know what I mean? Like you can go to like a 4th grade tackle football game and you see some parents turning into animals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You learn a lot about composure, and you can learn a lot of really good life skills that you can apply when you get older from sports, you know?
Yeah, you can also learn how not to act as a parent. When my son was 5 and he's playing soccer, and none of the kids know which way to kick it. And so the coaches step in and they just kind of like kick it back into play and help out. And some of the parents stand up like, what are you doing? Let them play the game. And you're like, Jesus, sit down. This is just, they're 5 years old. No one's scored a goal in 20 minutes.
Yeah, so I have my officiating license. For 8 years, I refereed football and basketball in Ohio.
Oh,
and
cool.
There's no story that like I couldn't tell you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's so many things that happened. They're like parents saying things like the most extreme things would happen, and I just wouldn't be surprised. I'm just like, it's just another day where I'm just trying to make a little bit of side cash, you know.
That's how you learn
threats.
Calm in stressful situations. That's a really good life skill, I think.
Yeah, you have to be resilient to be a ref at a kid's game.
I feel like in my experience, people's true character comes out playing Halo.
Yeah.
I forgot that was a thing.
And that's why I'm cynical.
I know playing Call of Duty is I think you'll hear some from a bunch of like you'll be told to kill yourself by a bunch of 8-year-olds so relentlessly that you like actually go into a deep depression.
Yeah, I'm not much of a gamer, but so I had a surgery recently in December. So I was playing like a little bit of video games because I was forced to, right? So I'm just sitting there playing video games like some Madden, and this dude's just cussing me out on the other edge. I'm just like, yo, like I just picked up my controller. Like, you know, so people take that stuff like you know, when you don't see somebody face to face, you can get away with saying whatever, you know what I mean? And people aren't shy about it.
It sucks the fun out of it as like a mid-30s guy who's I've just started playing video games again because I've found the time here and there, and I'm like,
yeah,
it ruins it. Like just getting belittled by middle schoolers is just not fun.
You know what the game for you is then? Tetris.
Yeah, I should just get on Animal Crossing. I hear that one's pretty relaxing.
I don't know. No, Monopoly is a good game if you play it online, because then you don't have to count the money; it's just all accounted for you. And we played hours of Monopoly. And in general, I think it takes like 2 or 3 hours, and it takes at most an hour and a half for us to play a game of Monopoly when you do it online. So it's a cool thing.
Noted.
Okay, so as you might have guessed, I don't know if you've gotten to listen to any of our show before, but a large portion of our audience are people who left the church that they grew up in. There's a lot of them that, I mean, it's not all atheists or by any means. There's a lot of people who are still professing Christians, but like grew disgruntled with like the brand of Christianity that they grew up with and found some other version of it that they liked better, that fit them better. Church seems to be a thing that's like, it's in a rough patch right now in America. And I don't know. I think a lot of people are, what is it that you think the church is doing wrong right now? Open-ended question. Totally. I mean, not looking for any specific answer, but like when you see, whether it's, mega church pastors in, $2,500 sneakers, or, other ones that are, calling into Fox News on a Sunday morning or whatever. Like, what is it that you see out there that you're like, I don't know if this is the way?
Yeah, so for me, like people will ask me now, like what my denomination is, or just like, oh, this church, that church, mega churches, small churches. And for me, I'm really big on just focusing on your relationship with God, and I think like when we all go to, like, sometimes I feel like a lot of churches, they focus more on like the empty calories versus the meat and veggies of Christianity. And when, at least for me, like sometimes being a Christian at the end of the day, you should be able to show people you're a Christian instead of telling them and taking a Bible. Sometimes some Christians have a habit of like Bible bashing, somebody's skull, where like a lot of people will just go completely away from the church because of how hard some people come down on them. Where at the end of the day, we're just trying to be molded into the image of Jesus, trying to be Christ-like, being loving, caring, compassionate, being there for people when they're down, and at the end of the day, you could say, oh, I've read my Bible 10 times through, or I'm going to church every single Sunday, but are you living it? You know what I mean? And I think that's where there's some disconnect, is that I feel like some people have a bad experience at a church, because of certain circumstances. And at the end of the day, like, I believe when we go to heaven, we're not going to be segregated. The Baptists, Calvinists, Catholics, Charismatics,
we'll all see the truth. We'll all see the truth of how it really is, how Jesus really is.
Yeah, but I just feel like sometimes we fight so much against ourselves, like, oh, my theology is better than your theology, and it's just, I feel like that internal conflict is what people, they see that, and they see the bleeding, because churches aren't perfect, because churches are run by men, right? And when they see some of the bleeding that goes on, I feel like
some are run by women.
Oh, some people, because of
the bad ones,
because of like an experience, I feel like get pulled away. But for me, like I was telling you guys earlier about my addiction, like I became a reborn Christian laying on my bed. You know what I mean? It wasn't in church, and I think that if churches sometimes just instead of telling people, hey, this, that, and this, you need to be doing this right, you're committing that sin, oh, you shouldn't be wearing this, instead of pointing fingers, just showing them, without telling them that you're a Christian, I feel like could bring more people to Christ, and Matthew 5:16 told us to let our light shine before others, so sometimes just instead of talking about it, actually be about it, and I think you can lead by example in that way.
Yeah. Also, Jesus simplified things before he came, which is the Old Testament. There was like over 600 laws of all these things that you need to do to, I don't know, if get to heaven or just like to be a good person, whatever. But when Jesus came, he said all those 600 laws are replaced with 2. The first one's love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is love your neighbor as yourself. So if you really did that, then it's like you would fulfill everything you need to in Jesus' words, so that's pretty easy, I think. You know what I mean? Like, it's nice when things become simple for you instead of so many details,
Yeah. It's like, until people start arguing about what that looks like and what it means, that's where I guess the rubber meets the road again. It's like, I like that. I mean, I'm here for the simplicity of it being the way you live your life, but it is, I guess that's I feel like we're at now where, so the time that like Jesus came into, where it's like, he came into a pretty hefty time of debate on what it means. Like Jewish people under Roman occupation trying to figure out, like, the Pharisees trying to figure out, like, we need to follow these laws because we have all these promises that say that, God's going to come through for us and give us our own city. So we're waiting for a Messiah. We're waiting for our actual kingdom to be rebuilt. And like, so then you have people who are like, well, it says that we need to follow these laws for that to happen. And then it's like, well, what does it mean to follow these laws? And you end up with like a million different ways of looking at it and a lot of arguing and infighting. And I think we ended up in the same spot when it seems like it could be more simple until everyone starts arguing about what it actually means and what it looks like again. And I don't know. I think that's a big part of, not that Casey asked me my opinion, but it's my podcast. Yeah. I can say what I want. It's that's I guess, to get to his question, that's where it feels like things have gone super awry. Is like there's so much argumentation about what that looks like and what that means that it's caused a lot of people to be like, who then really knows, and throw in the towel and find their own way forward.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, even simpler than that is just the gospel, which is believe in your heart that, Jesus came and died and that God raised him from the dead. Confess it with your mouth. That's evidently how you get saved. You know what I mean? And so, I know some people think that you can be unsaved once you are, and there are some people that think you're eternally secure. That's hard to
Which
know.
one do you think it is? Because that means a lot to me. That has a lot of consequences for me.
I don't know. My dad always said, don't get so close to hell that you say, how far can I go till I fall in? It's like, why don't you just stay away from the edge and you'll be safe,
So it's a spectrum.
I don't try to ride the line, so,
I voted for John McCain in 2008, if that helps.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm going to put on my
tell you, that's better than Obama.
But okay, so here's and maybe this isn't something that's really something we can dive into, but okay, so
do it.
So a lot of like social media, like, we talk about people being aggressive on social media and saying rude things.
Yeah.
It seems like so much of what happens on social media, whether it's someone, you just take, for example, like someone blasting a person for being a bigot because they, believe something that they don't right. So much of that, I think, when you step back and look at it, feels less like, okay, this is not about you standing up for someone. This is not about you like trying to change another person's mind that you don't agree with. Like, this seems to be a performance to show that you're part of the team, right? Like, is this really how you affect change when you're talking about like climate issues, or are you just trying to show that you're part of the right team?
Continue. I'm sorry.
Well, I think like, okay, you said earlier, you were talking about how like, the Bible says that like Christians will be hated and stuff for living according to Christ and whatnot. Do you think that some of this, the backlash is like self-inflicted? Because we've all heard people say like, well, I don't believe in homosexuality. I think it's living in sin. So for me to not like call someone out over Twitter for being gay or like in general, that's not a loving way for me to be, right? I have to tell them that they're going to hell because I love them, and that's what real love looks like. How much of that though then becomes like, this is me performatively like speaking to what I want to be known as. Like I'm declaring my identity to the outward world rather than like, I want to help this person that I don't think is living correctly.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you because at least, so take my Eye of the Tiger video, for example, right? If people are really that concerned about my salvation over the video, or really concerned about that event, they would have messaged me personally, reached out to me personally. My business email is on my Instagram account, so if they were really that concerned, it would be like, hey, Nick, saw your video, Eye of the Tiger, just wanted to say, maybe quote some scriptures or whatever. But a lot of people, they wanted to go public with it, And so to me, whenever I was reading comments, like I said, I try to be objective. I don't take any of it personally. Most of the time I just chuckle. Like her and I, like, we'll be watching or reading some stuff.
We were laughing, reading comments, and we've often found it to be a great source of entertainment, reading comments. My sister and I, when we had our videos, and then with our video, so I'm no stranger to hate because of the other videos, and
I'm
with
sure
him refereeing, that he's no stranger either. So I think we were sort of already prepared for it. Didn't really hit me by surprise too much.
But yeah, to your point, like a lot of people on social media, their point, like, look how right. I'm sorry, Haley. They'll be like, look how right I am because I said this, versus like, hey, I actually want to help this person grow as a human being, and especially nowadays with social media, people have businesses on social media, and I've starting to get like a little from the Eye of the Tiger video, just a little bit more exposure. I've been able to get a little bit of money through Instagram and Facebook for posting things. And when people are running their social media as a business, people go on social media at the end of the day to be entertained. People, just like I'm a WWE fan, what creates good matches is the drama, the clashes, saying, no, I'm better than you, and she does an impression of like WWE wrestlers, but
very predictable.
But sometimes I feel that a lot of people on social media, like even like MGK versus Eminem, people invest in beefs. You know what I mean? Like even if they're not actually beefing, they might be chuckling and be like, dude, look at the interactions that we're getting. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I feel that especially if you're going to put something out publicly, I do feel there's a motive to represent your brand, show that you're down with the cause, and sometimes one of my favorite verses is Galatians 1:10, where it tells you not to seek the approval of men, but seek the approval of God. And a lot of people that are, commenting or saying certain things, they're trying to engage with their followers to sort of show them, hey, I am why I post certain things, if that makes sense,
Yep.
It almost seems like a trap that everyone, our entire generation is falling into, right? This like purposely courting controversy and like wearing your colors publicly for people to see. Like, it almost feels like a trap that the church has sort of stumbled into now, where it's like, guys, are we really actually trying to like change people's minds and bring them closer to the truth, or are we trying to make noise to get attention for, like you said, the approval of men? That verse, like you said, like seeking the approval of men, that always gets explained. I mean, I always heard it explained in like people want the world's, like that's a person who wants the world's attention and approval rather than God's. But like you could definitely see like in your explanation sort of how that would also apply to like, hey, you're trying to get attention and approval from other Christians, and it's maybe at the expense of like impact that you could have if you were just living like you say you want to live,
Mm-hmm.
It's actually scary to get the approval of men, because it's like, what are you doing wrong if everybody's approving of what you're doing? You know what I mean? The gospel is not really a pretty message. It is a message of hope, but it's also a message of offense to a lot of people that want to believe they are basically good and are like, oh, I'm not a sinner. Why would I need someone to die for me? Like, it can be easy to reject that. But I don't know. I think that it's good to have people not agree with you. That's a good thing. I mean, obviously, you want to get through to people if you want them to believe the same way as you do. It's like, hey, let's all go to heaven together. Like, obviously, the point is to get people to believe what you believe, but you got to know not everyone is going to.
Do you enjoy controversy?
Talking to him or me?
To you. I'm sorry, Haley.
I have started to. I think I've started to. Even I was always scared of hate until I got it, and I was like, oh, it's actually very liberating when you can get to that point, because if you can't take people talking bad about you or thinking bad about you, you're not a very strong person. You have to kind of get grit in this life, and sometimes it comes naturally, sometimes you make it happen. But I wasn't trying to, we weren't trying to, we weren't doing it for views. Like we supported Rick Santorum back in 2012, and we actually thought he was a good candidate. It's not like we were trying to get on Yahoo News and all these places like we did. It's like, oh, it's cool that happened.
You guys are pro sweater vest.
What did you say?
You guys are pro sweater vest.
Sweater vest. Was that what he wore?
We're talking about the dad from David and Goliath, right?
I focus a little bit more on what he believed than what he wore, but yeah, we were like, this is a good candidate, and we don't want to see our country go down. And I feel like it has gone down gradually. I think Trump sort of saved it for a little bit, but he's also very polarizing. A lot of people didn't like him and didn't know they could only see that he was a child in his tweets. They could only see that he was immature sometimes. They didn't really see what he did good for the country. So that's sad. But everyone has their own opinions, and that actually is a very beautiful thing,
Yeah, I feel like there's a real gulf there. I mean, I live in Kansas, so most everybody I know is conservative. I feel like a lot of people would call me conservative, depending on who they are. I don't get the Trump thing. Like that controversy, that constant I mean, he definitely revels in controversy, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think that's somewhat controversial, like contrary to good leadership, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. For me personally, when it comes to this upcoming election, whether you're riding with Biden or thump with Trump, but for me, like especially with me, like I'm really, really big about Jesus, hence my business, and what we're trying to do. I really want to see one of these political leaders like actually humble themselves before God. And instead of saying, you're bad, no, you're bad, I actually want to see somebody humble themselves and be like, hey, if I'm going to be this leader, I'm going to do it through Christ. And I think, because obviously, her and I are really big Christians. I feel like if we're going to bring this country to God, we need to stop idolizing politicians, one way or another. And we need to focus on a Christ-centered leader, no matter who that is, you know what I mean? And I just feel like, because let's just say someone's really down with Trump, right? Like you're saying, like there's really big Trump supporters in Kansas. Let's just say he wins in 2024, goes on to 2028. We sometimes create these false idols out of leaders, and the ball's going to keep going. You know what I mean? And there's going to be other people that keep coming along.
8 years max, and that can go downhill again. But what I think is, if Trump can be considered an evil, right? What's the less of two evils? Has Biden done well for this country? Is he making is he doing the right thing by our country? You know what I mean? Yeah. With everything that's going on, sometimes you just choose whatever's the lesser of two evils instead of who the perfect person is, because there are no perfect politicians.
Who's the perfect corpse to occupy the chair? Okay, so who's your backup then? If Trump doesn't get the nomination, who do you hope gets it?
Well, of course, DeSantis. I mean, people like DeSantis.
You're pulling for DeSantis second.
DeSantis is a lot like Trump, but he's more liked. And you know what, though, about Trump? He makes peace with other countries, but he's not respected in his own country. And there's a parallel to Jesus there. Jesus was respected in other cities. So he would experience a lot of healings other places when he would travel and minister, because people believed in him. In his own city where he grew up in, they're like, oh, that's just Jesus, the carpenter's son. So they didn't believe in him, and he experienced a lot less people having faith, and there was less miracles. I don't know if you knew that or not, but sometimes you're not respected in your own country, but other people from other countries can see, and they're making fun of Biden. They're like, oh, this is America's president, and all these memes and stuff. And obviously
none of them made fun of Trump.
Made fun of Trump. But I believe in ignorance they made fun of Trump. Yes, he can be made fun of for stupid stuff he does, like stupid things he says or whatever. But don't actions speak louder than words? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was my biggest problem, actually.
Did you guys buy his NFTs?
Yeah, that was one of the only things I liked that he did, because I made a shitload of money off of those shirtless Trump NFTs.
Yeah, I mean, the economy was doing a lot better. My stocks were higher, I'll say that. I got into penny stocks.
Yeah, fair.
But or before that. And gas prices and all that. And I don't know. I also support someone who supports non-abortion. I think abortion's murder. And yeah, I don't think that should ever be okay. You know what I mean? And also,
well, agree to districtty. I feel like these are like the tried and true debates that are kind of not entirely worth hashing out.
Yeah, after probably not making progress
of conversation.
I got my boxing back. I don't have it on my hands, so.
These are you have to split the difference here. Like, this is something that people. There's no. I've never seen a debate on this topic change anybody's mind, or strongly held convictions impact somebody else's strongly held convictions. So I understand it. I'm not even necessarily opposed. It's not like you have like this giant like anti-pro-life ethic or anything like that. And there's plenty of people who have pro-life ethics who I might find some disagreement on, but ultimately would stand with based on their, what they believe would be a good answer to solving those problems, like a Shane Claiborne. I'll jump into his camp all day and reach across the aisle there. So it's not, I don't think that people have the hardline stances that they're made out to have. And I think some of the debates that are forced into the zeitgeist end up doing everyone a disservice instead of being like if that's the case and we have this disagreement, other than the fringe, you'll find the fringe people who are like, you know what, I think abortion's awesome and I love it and we should celebrate it. And I think those people are obviously just fall into the trappings of what Casey was talking about earlier of just trying to that's pageantry for a particular side. But I think you would find 80% of the country going, what can we do to decrease this? If you can't stop it completely and you're not going to legislate it out of existence, because even if you try to legislate it out of existence, it has always existed. Like you could look across the aisle and say, there are some concrete things we can do to reduce this. And let's not, it's not a zero-sum game. And I think abortion's been turned into that. So I don't necessarily know that the tried and true debate of pro-life abortionist is overly helpful.
Who are kind of in the middle where they're like, well, I don't believe in abortion, but in the case of rape or incest, then I would support it. And I'll always go back to the Bible. It's my rule book, right? And what the Bible says is that before we were formed in the womb, God knew who we were and called us by name. And whether we came out of a married situation or a not married situation, babies come sometimes, right? And it's like God planned them. So, and if a woman can't take care of a baby, then they can always adopt it out. There's a lot of people that can't have babies. It's unfortunate that a lot of people that really want babies can't have them, and people that don't want them have them oftentimes, And,
you have a lot of siblings, right?
But yeah, we do. There is 8 of us. So yeah, I am pro-life. My mom had actually 5 miscarriages between the 7th and the 8th. But we went to a church service and the pastor said, there's a woman in here who's barren, but on your 10th step out of this building, you'll be healed. And my mom's like, okay, that's definitely me. And so she took her 10th step and she's like, I didn't feel anything, but then she was pregnant shortly after. So little Hadassah Jubilees, our miracle rainbow baby. She's now 16. So
did you have any adopted siblings?
We never did. I mean, not legally. My dad sort of adopted by heart some people, but some kids.
Is that something that you guys are considering?
Well, we're pregnant, so if we couldn't have kids, maybe, you know what I mean? But
yeah, man. Well, I'm at a one at a time stage, you know what I mean? Especially she's I think 4 months pregnant.
4 months? Oh yeah. I was gonna say.
I was hoping to get a commitment for 4 now. You guys aren't ready to make that commitment.
Man, I think
there are plenty. There's plenty. I mean, fostering. Even my secular ass fostered some kids.
That's actually amazing.
No, that's awesome.
Did you see the movie? Did you see the movie called Instant Family with what's your guy's name?
Mark Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg and the other girl. Anyway, they talked about how hard it can be to foster kids and how they're running around and being crazy, and they may feel like they're warming up to you, then all of a sudden stab your back, and because they're it's very very little love in the system that they're put in a lot of times, and I wish the adoption system was better. You know what I mean? But
it would be nice.
Sam's kind of like living at Sam's house for foster kids is kind of like living with the trench bowl from Matilda.
I don't know if I've seen Matilda. I know it's got the girl from Miracle on 34th Street.
I pick them up by their hair and spin them in circles and toss them out windows. Is what he's trying to say.
Makes them eat cake until they die.
Yeah. Until they cast magic spells on me and send me flying over a gated fence.
And how many foster kids you say you have again?
I have one. I've had another, but that was a weird unofficial situation because she was 18 but still in high school, so it's not actually considered fostering because they're out of the system. But anyway, so too.
Dude, I just want to say that's awesome, man. I have so much respect for people that adopt and foster kids. Like it takes really special people to do that, So it says a lot about you that you're one of those people.
Maybe it means I'm saved.
No. Absolutely not.
If you believe in God and that Jesus died on the cross and God raised him from the grave, you are saved according to the Bible.
I'll have to get back to you on that.
You don't have to get back to me. I mean, it's your personal beliefs and decisions and all, but that's what the Bible says. Like I am literally protected by the Bible. I'm just like, this is what it says. And if people think I'm a hater, it's just everyone believes something, whether they believe in no God or whether they believe in Muhammad or Buddha or whatever. We all are actually entitled to our beliefs. You know what I mean? Because that's just
because God bless America. Amen.
Amen.
Beautiful.
What a comfortable place to be. Okay, so where can people find out more about Two for Christ and Live with Christ? And Haley, you and your sister, do you guys have a group name?
Well, for a long time it was First Love, but since First Love was taken everywhere, we did First Love Band, and that was our beginnings. And then people would say, introducing Camille and Haley Harris from the First Love Band. And we're like, goodness, we don't even have a band. We just used that name because it was available. So then we just changed our name to Camille and Haley. So we have CamilleandHaley.com, but since that's hard to spell, it also merges if you type in thesisterduo.com, and that will go to CamilleandHaley.com. And then for us, we have twoforchrist.org, TWO4Christ.org. Maybe even easier is liftwithchrist.org. And it goes to the same website. It's the home of both. So we just updated it, actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
Actually, I was surprised you had with Lift with Christ. Sorry, Lift with Christ has a you have a pretty good sized following there, man.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I know.
All my social media handles are all at Lift with Christ. And if you want to engage, message, I try to get back with as many people as I can that message. If you want to throw some hate comments, thinks my rapping's trash, like whatever the case is, like I don't disable comments, I don't block people. So I'm all about free speech. So if you want to say something, like have at it.
Well, maybe I'll reach out for some fitness tips because I'm getting schlubby in my mid-30s.
Dude, let's do it, man. I'll get you on a meal plan, workout routine. I'll get you swole.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, Nick and Haley, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate you hanging out with us.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you for having us. This was a good time.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. Like I know we talked a little bit before we got started, and I would agree. I hope I didn't set it up as though you're walking into a hostile environment, but it was one of those like asking someone to do something where like you're going on something where there's going to be ideological differences. It makes it tough. I think people don't necessarily know what to expect.
We just went on
you guys were great. It was Hemet Meadow, right?
Great guy, really nice.
He is. We've had him on our podcast earlier on when we got this thing going. He's a nice guy. I appreciate him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I appreciate you guys doing this. I think it's really cool of you, and I had a good time talking to you both.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Yeah, dude, I take things in stride, man. Just gonna roll with it. I think even like you mentioned ideologies, it's like, bro, if two people are chill, like, at the end of the day, I think it's a shame that people are like, different viewpoints. It's like we're all brothers and sisters in Christ here on earth. You know what I mean? So this was fun, man. I'm really glad you had us on. This was a pleasure talking with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
By the way, is that a Loki shirt or what shirt is that? Tesseract?
Tesseract, yeah. It's
not Loki, right?
Band.
Oh, it's a band. It's not King of Asgard.
Right.
Anyway,
thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
Okay.